Ready?
Yep.
Alright, hi, my name is Peter. One normal Saturday night would forever change my life. This was about 2 years ago. I was out with some friends and I ended up getting jumped at the end of the night by 8 Asian males. Basically, somebody punched me from behind. I fell on the floor, and all I could see was fists in my face. I mean, I had really nowhere to run. I felt pretty helpless. My back was to a car, and what I instantly thought of at that moment was that, hey, I have a knife in my pocket, so I pulled it out and I used it. Next thing I know, I hear sirens in the distance, and the cops immediately arrived at the scene. I was handcuffed and taken to jail that night. This brings me to my speech, which is about repeat offenders and how the jail rehabilitation isn't effective. After much research and personal experience, I discovered many causes that leads to repeat offenders, and essentially the court system, they take control out of the individual's hands, and you lose your own say in what kind of freedom you have. So that's also ineffective. And I come to the determination that you need alternatives, such as alternate incarceration programs, namely Common Justice, which is one I attended. This brings me to my first main point about how the rising crime rate is a huge problem. It's costing Americans $450 billion annually, approximately, and the prison population has tripled since 1987. Some even record as high as 2.3 million at any given time. The Re-Entry Policy Council has, they approximate that there are 700,000 prison releases yearly. Although this year, as reported by Tina Rosenberg, there seems to be a record high of 750,000 people. And that doesn't even begin to cover the amount of people admitted each year. 67% of these people are expected to be rearrested within 3 years' time. Most of these are going to be felonies or very serious misdemeanors. And 50% of these are going to be reconvicted and sent to jail. These current methods are ineffective. The current methods that we are employing today are very ineffective, such as the production of new prisons. The prisons are basically just contributing to, they're contributing to the fact that we're growing the prison population annually. The severe punishments have become useless because crimes are particularly irrational or impulsive, and most of the time they're influenced by alcohol or drugs. Peter Celia from Harvard University Press actually suggested that prison creates better criminals. So, by going to prison, you're actually building up more and more anger in you, and effectively becoming, you're coming out and you've been socializing with all of these other criminals, driving you to become more and more aggressive. The 3 major causes of high rearrest rates are number 1, the decline of prison rehabilitation and change in sentencing. Namely, the change in sentencing is when they actually altered the indeterminate sentencing to the determinate sentencing, which the indeterminate sentencing was the process where they assign you a minimum amount of years to be sentenced, and then they assign you a set release date, and then eventually you have to agree to the parole terms. Otherwise, you're going to have to serve the full sentence, which could be as high as 50 years for a typical felony we see today, which is between 7 to 10 years. The determinate, which is what's been widely employed today, it's short term. You serve the full sentence minus possible good behavior time. And the second cause to this problem is basically just the prison environment themselves. As I previously mentioned, being in prison imposes a certain ideal in an individual. You tend to become more animalistic. You get a mentality of survival of the fittest. So you become more aggressive. And the proximity and socialization of offenders drives people to become fearful of these of possible threats, which then again translates to forced displays of aggression. The last major cause of high rearrest rates are because of poor prisoner reentry integrations, which basically means that the prisoners that are released from jail aren't getting the proper attention to assimilate into a better life and continue and be more productive. The New York Times actually reports that released prisoners typically rejoin their old life. They start meeting up with old gangs or even new people that they're more comfortable with, which are typically criminals because of all the time spent in jail. And worst of all, I mean, they end up acting on prison plans because that's all they know. They lose track of their loved ones being in jail for so long. Tina Rosenberg again actually mentions that the typical package offered to a released New York State prisoner is $40 and a bus ticket. I mean, where are you going to go with $40 and a bus ticket? There's actually a promotion of returning these prisoners home because you want to keep them away from most of the public, the general public. You want to keep them isolated, and this promotion is also enforced by politicians, focusing more on sentencing maximization as opposed to preventing future crime, preventing future arrest rates and crime. Now that you've heard the causes, this brings me to possible solutions. And two possible solutions to minimize rearrest rates. I mean, even with that, it still solely depends on the individual because they don't want to change. They're not going to change. The first one will be the implementation and candidacy of alternative incarceration programs, such as the one I mentioned, Common Justice. This is actually on the website about why you might need them, what they offer, what's appealing about it. It offers a more suitable environment to succeed and rehabilitate. Your coordinator gets together with the victim and yourself, and you actually work together to create a more personalized approach to justice, which is actually what I went through. The offenders...
you're going to have to come to the conclusion because you're over 8 minutes now.
Alright, in conclusion, statistically in 3 years' time, we can expect approximately 500,000 rearrest rates from previous offenders. This is a huge problem, and although you can't eliminate crime because of all the factors associated, irrational, rational, you can definitely start limiting the rearrest rates of violent offenders. This might be outlandish to consider such options as letting criminals roam the streets free, but if it saved me, then perhaps it can save somebody else.